Welcome back, everyone. This is Stefan, and you're watching Trending Update USA, the place where the biggest stories in global sports meet real emotion, real impact, and real voices from the athletes who live it every day. Today we're diving into a powerful and deeply resonant story shaking the tennis world, one that goes far beyond prize money and rankings, and speaks directly to respect, mental health, and how far the sport still has to go. After a reported $270,000 rejection, some of the biggest names in women's tennis, including Coco Gauff and Iga Świątek, have come together to publicly support Caroline Garcia, igniting a much larger conversation about value, fairness, and player empowerment. The story begins not on the court, but behind closed doors, where negotiations and decisions often shape careers just as much as Grand Slam finals do. Caroline Garcia, a former world number 4 Grand Slam champion in doubles, and one of the most respected voices on the WTA Tour, reportedly declined an offer valued at around $270,000 tied to a commercial and promotional commitment. On the surface, some critics were quick to label it as ungrateful or unrealistic, especially in an era where sponsorship money is considered essential for players outside the very top ranks. But for Garcia, this was never only about the number on the check. It was about terms, expectations, workload, and most importantly, respect. Garcia has long been vocal about the pressures that female tennis players face, both physically and mentally. In recent years, she has openly discussed burnout, anxiety, and the constant grind of tour life, themes that resonate deeply with many players but are rarely addressed transparently. Her rejection of the deal wasn't a demand for more money. It was a statement. A statement that players have the right to say no when deals conflict with their well-being, identity, or sense of professional worth. As details of the rejection spread, debate erupted across social media. Some fans questioned how any athlete could turn down such a sum, while others praised Garcia for standing her ground. What shifted the narrative dramatically, however, was the response from her peers, particularly the sport's biggest stars. Coco Gauff, still only in her early 20s but already a Grand Slam champion and global icon, was among the first to publicly show solidarity. Gauff's message was clear and powerful. Players are more than marketing vehicles. They are human beings with limits, agency, and the right to define their own value. Gauff's support carried significant weight. She represents the new generation of tennis stars, athletes who are not only winning on court but also redefining what it means to have a voice off it. For Gauff, who herself has navigated massive commercial expectations since her teenage years, Garcia's stand struck a personal chord. She emphasized that saying no should never require justification, especially when mental health and personal boundaries are involved. Soon after, Iga Świątek echoed those sentiments. Known for her thoughtful, introspective approach and her advocacy for mental balance and mindfulness, Świątek framed the issue in terms of sustainability. She highlighted how the tennis calendar is already overwhelming, how obligations pile up quickly, and how declining an offer can sometimes be an act of self-preservation rather than arrogance. Coming from a multiple-time Grand Slam champion and former world number 1, that message resonated loudly across the tour. Other players joined in as well, some publicly, others quietly through shared statements and private messages that later came to light. The underlying message was unified. The system often places disproportionate demands on players, particularly women, without adequate consideration for mental fatigue, personal values, or long-term health. Garcia's rejection became a catalyst, a moment that pulled back the curtain on how often athletes feel pressured to accept every opportunity, regardless of the cost. What makes this moment particularly significant is timing. Women's sports are enjoying unprecedented visibility and investment, but that growth has also intensified scrutiny and expectations. Sponsorship deals are bigger, social media exposure is constant, and athletes are expected to be performers, influencers, and advocates all at once. For someone like Garcia, who has publicly acknowledged struggling with the mental toll of this lifestyle, drawing a clear boundary was not just brave, it was necessary. This collective show of support also reflects a broader cultural shift within tennis. Gone are the days when players stayed silent out of fear of backlash or being labeled difficult. Today's stars understand their influence and are increasingly willing to challenge norms. Gauff and Swiatek lending their voices transformed what could have been framed as an isolated financial decision into a shared stand for autonomy and respect. Fans, too, have begun rethinking their reactions. While some initial criticism focused on the dollar amount, deeper conversations soon followed. How much is mental peace worth? How many unpaid hours go into fulfilling sponsorship obligations? How often do players feel boxed into roles that don't align with who they are? These questions, sparked by Garcia's choice, have opened a necessary dialogue that extends far beyond tennis. It's also impossible to ignore the gender dynamics at play. Male athletes rejecting sponsorships rarely face the same level of scrutiny or moral judgment. For women, decisions are often framed emotionally or personally, rather than professionally. Garcia's situation highlighted that double standard, and the immediate backing from fellow players helped counter it forcefully. From a business perspective, this moment may even influence how future deals are structured. Brands and organizations are watching closely. When top players collectively push back against unrealistic expectations, it signals that partnerships must evolve to be more flexible, respectful, and athlete-centered. The power balance, slowly but meaningfully, is shifting. For Garcia herself, the response has reportedly provided reassurance during a challenging period, knowing that peers not only understand but actively support her. Decision reinforces that she's not alone. In a sport where individuality reigns supreme on court, moments of unity like this are rare and powerful. Coco Gauff's involvement also underscores her growing role as a leader beyond her age. She has never shied away from advocacy, whether addressing social issues or speaking about player welfare. By backing Garcia, she reaffirmed her commitment to a more humane sports culture, one where success isn't measured solely by contracts signed or titles won. Iga Świątek's comments further deepened the conversation by addressing balance, reminding everyone that even champions are constantly managing internal battles. Her perspective added nuance, emphasizing that protecting mental energy can be just as crucial as improving a backhand or serve. As the story continues to ripple through the tennis world, one thing is becoming clear. This is bigger than $270,000. It's about redefining value, reclaiming control, and acknowledging that athletes are not commodities. Garcia's rejection, once isolated and questioned, has become symbolic of a shifting mindset within women's tennis. Young players watching this unfold are learning an important lesson early in their careers. Saying no does not mean failure. Setting boundaries does not mean weakness. And collective support can change the narrative faster than silence ever could. The tennis calendar will move on, tournaments will be played, trophies will be lifted, but moments like this leave a lasting imprint. They slowly reshape the culture of the sport, setting precedents that help future generations navigate their careers with more confidence and clarity. As fans, this is also a moment for reflection. Supporting players means understanding the full scope of their reality, not just what we see on match day. Applauding powerful stands like Garcia's and recognizing the voices that amplify them, like Gauff's and Swiatek's, is part of becoming a more informed and empathetic audience. At Trending Update USA, we believe stories like this matter because they reveal the human side of elite competition. They remind us that behind every statistic is a person making difficult choices, often under immense pressure. This united front from some of tennis's biggest stars sends a clear message to the industry. Respect, balance, and well-being are not negotiable extras, they are essentials. And as more athletes speak up and stand together, the future of the sport looks not only brighter, but healthier. This is Stefan, and you've been watching Trending Update USA, where we'll continue to follow this story and bring you the voices that matter most in the world of tennis and beyond.